Team Fortress 2 is a much loved and well respected game that is still hugely popular today, over 10 years since its release, and it still regularly vies for a top spot in the top 10 or even the top 5 most concurrent players on Steam. It's no surprise then that many other games over those 10 years have tried to capture some of the magic that gets TF2 players so excited. Be that the class-based shooting, the quirky, cartoon-esque art style, or the unique sense of humour of the both in and out-of-game universe. Many developers have clamoured for a piece of that sweet Team Fortress pie, with varying levels of success. Because of TF2's pretty dominant position as one of the top casual PC shooters for the best part of its 10 years in existence, whenever a new IP enters the market, it is often called a potential
TF2 killer.
Brink was one of the earliest games to get people talking about potentially being one of these fabled TF2 killers. The game released in May 2011. It was developed by the studio Splash Damage and it was published by Bethesda. Whilst Brink had some unique elements such as a well-received parkour system baked in, comparisons to TF2 were drawn because of its classes, its objective-based gameplay, and to some degree because of its non-realistic art style. Comparisons were also drawn because of the promo crossover. Those who pre-ordered Brink would get the Anger in Team Fortress 2, everyone's favourite sniper hat. A cross-promotion like this is a pretty simple and effective marketing strategy to encourage Team Fortress fans specifically to pre-order Brink in the hope that those Team Fortress fans will ultimately become Brink fans. Unfortunately, and is often the case with new multiplayer games, it was riddled with server issues and other bugs shortly after launch, and despite its pre-release hype, reviews were, on average, lukewarm. A bad start was only worsened when Team Fortress 2 went from pay-to-play to free-to-play just 1 month after Brink's release. So anyone who was unfamiliar with either game and was looking for some class, team and objective-based warfare really had a lot less to think about when deciding which game to pick up. Brink had a steadily declining stream of players for pretty much all of its lifetime, with the average concurrent players rarely breaching 100 after its first year. That was until the game went free to play in August 2017, where the average players skyrocketed and went up by over 2,000%. Until of course the month after, where things quickly tailed off back to normal levels, once everyone had had a chance to play and realised that those early reviews were actually pretty accurate. Monday Night Combat is a 2010 game released by Uber Entertainment, but most people are probably more familiar with their 2012 game Super Monday Night Combat, which was a free-to-play and slightly more feature-filled version of the 2010 non-Super version. Visually, the games are over-the-top and cartoonish, which led many people to comment on their similarities to Team Fortress 2, albeit in a futuristic sports ball setting. However, these particular games tended to avoid the TF2 killer brand because their gameplay was a unique mix of FPS, MOBA, and tower defense. Just like Brink, Super MNC had promo items that you could unlock in Team Fortress 2, except this time they weren't unlocked by simply pre-ordering, but by actually playing the game and reaching a certain level. Again, these are just promo methods that try and encourage people who are already fans of Team Fortress 2 to play these games. The Super MNC items, the Flamingo Kit and the Triclops, could even still be obtained up until May 2018, when the servers were ultimately shut down, so these items are now no longer obtainable through legitimate methods. Despite the initial reception to the game being somewhat more favourable than Brink, both Monday Night Combat and Super Monday Night Combat failed to ever really take off to a notable degree. And despite having some core and passionate fans, player numbers dwindled down from the low hundreds to barely even 50 for the majority of its lifetime. If you've never heard of the developer Edge of Reality, I wouldn't be that surprised. From 1999 until 2013, the only games that they worked on were either ports from one console to another or movie tie-in games, and also for some reason the 6th installment of the action-adventure Pitfall franchise. It is a surprise to me then that their first self-published and new IP was Loadout, a free-to-play chaotic shooter for PC and PS4, whose core mechanics revolved around insane weapon customization. Another cartoony and over-the-top art style, this time also with an emphasis on crazy hats and cosmetics, of course drew comparisons to Team Fortress 2. Gameplay-wise, Loadout put in a sizable effort to be unique, with a number of creative game modes and of course the aforementioned gun customization, which was a major point of the game. Again, the TF2 Killer phrase was liberally thrown around, although even in its release month, Loadout's maximum concurrent players failed to exceed even TF2's worst month on record. Despite never getting anywhere near Team Fortress 2's success, Loadout did find relative success on its own for the first few years of its life, with average concurrent players being in a few hundred most month, until the game's servers ultimately closed down in May 2018. Published by Nexon and developed by Splash Damage, the developers of Brink, we get the game Dirty Bomb in mid-2015. Chances are this is the game that viewers are most familiar with so far. Graphically, Dirty Bomb was probably the least TF2-like of all the games in this video, but the gameplay was again class and objective based, which of course fueled the inevitable comparisons to Team Fortress. Its setting is post-disaster London, and in general it was a whole lot more gritty than the comic flamboyance of Team Fortress. The game also did a lot to popularise the simple but universally sensible rule of video games:
don't be a dick.
So in the 3 years since Splash Damage released Brink, what did they learn from their iOS game and their Batman multiplayer development? Well, enough to make a game which didn't die on launch, consistently putting up player numbers in the multiple of thousands for most of its lifetime. Anecdotally, I feel like Dirty Bomb's timing played at least some part in its relative success, because in the middle of 2015, which was when Dirty Bomb released, it was around the time that the initial wave of Team Fortress 2 apathy was starting to spread throughout the community, with various community figures becoming notably less engaged, whilst at the same time major content updates were becoming less frequent. But of course, the best way to make a successful game is to make a good one, and Dirty Bomb has obviously done well enough to keep players interested for so long, albeit with dwindling numbers since the start of this year. Overwatch is a competitive first-person shooter developed and published by Blizzard and released in May 2016. Similarities to TF2 were noted from the moment the game was revealed, but the developers actually embraced these comparisons, even going so far as to say that they considered being compared to Team Fortress 2 a huge compliment. Although Overwatch certainly has its own unique and polished art style, it is somewhat on the cartoony side, like Team Fortress is. Additionally, many of the heroes have extremely similar kits to some of the Team Fortress classes, and even some of the game modes are very similar to Team Fortress 2's Payload, Attack Defend, and King of the Hill game modes. In terms of actual gameplay, Overwatch also borrows some elements from MOBAs, namely the ability system, which heroes utilise alongside their regular weapons. The gameplay is also balanced towards hard counters, in so much as a certain hero will be extremely effective against a different certain hero, as opposed to Team Fortress 2, where classes are much more closely balanced with only 1 or 2 hard counters existing. There does not appear to be a public source of player numbers in Overwatch like there are for the Steam games that we've talked about so far. However, all signs point to a game which is very much alive. The game regularly receives balance patches and major updates, and its communities appear to be active and thriving. Overwatch is the most potent contender to the TF2 Killer argument, with many community members moving over directly from Team Fortress 2 to Overwatch, with even a number of high-level players and casters now being professionals in the Overwatch League. Despite this, player numbers in Team Fortress 2 around the time of Overwatch's release seem unaffected, and the only notable decrease in players from the extremely consistent 45 to 50,000 concurrent players is around February 2018. And I can only assume that is due to the absolutely insane popularity of Fortnite. However, similar dips can be seen across all major shooters on Steam in these months, so I think it would be unfair to call Fortnite a TF2 killer, and it's just pretty much a every game wounder. 2017 onwards, and Team Fortress 2 is no longer the game to beat. Although Overwatch didn't do any damage directly to Team Fortress 2's popularity when we look at the numbers, it certainly feels like Overwatch is now regarded as the game to beat in the class-based shooter genre. What we have now seen is an emergence of a second generation of class-based, objective-based shooters, which are now much more likely to have been inspired by Overwatch rather than directly by TF2 itself. But of course, because Overwatch is inspired by TF2 itself, a lot of these games now have Team Fortress similarities. 2 games in this second generation that I've got personal experience with are LawBreakers and Quake Champions. Whilst Overwatch plays generally slower and more structured than Team Fortress 2, both LawBreakers and Quake Champions go back to those arcadey roots, and they're much more fast-paced and twitch-shooty, but they still borrow some features popularised in the FPS genre by Overwatch, such as ultimate abilities. And just like Team Fortress 2, the games have got classes, and they feature game modes focused around objectives. In a way, we've actually come full circle, because the Team Fortress series itself started as a Quake mod. So it's interesting to see how the franchise that we can thank for Team Fortress's existence now includes a game that utilises features which were ultimately popularised by the success of Team Fortress 2, i.e. classes. Whilst researching this video, I came across this cool Reddit post from 2015 by a user named The Kinsey, which links to an infographic of some fabled TF2 Killers and what happened to them. For those of you who want to know more than what I've covered in this video, I recommend checking out this infographic, as it is quite amusingly written, and it contains some nuggets of trivia which I didn't include in this video, largely because I couldn't find any supporting evidence for them, but they are an interesting read nonetheless. Thanks everybody for watching. On screen right now is a link to some of my other trivia videos, and if you're not already a subscriber, do feel free to subscribe to see when I post any more videos like this, or like something else. Thanks everyone for watching, and goodbye.
Special.